What are some of the challenges in studying emotions?
Everybody has a different idea of what emotions are, and nobody can agree on what the definition should be. And they're also really hard to measure because fundamentally there's something that you can't see, or you can guess, but you can't directly measure them.
How do you define the term emotion?
My definition of emotion does not include subjective feelings, which is how most people think of emotions. If we think of the brain's emotion function as kind of an iceberg, the feeling part of emotion is just the tip of the iceberg above the sea of consciousness. And there's a whole big part of the iceberg in the brain under the water that we try to understand. And those are fundamentally brain states. They change the way your brain reacts to a particular stimulus. Sleep is an example. When you're asleep, you might not hear a pin drop on the floor, but you would hear somebody blow a car horn if it was loud enough. When you're awake, you hear both. So emotions change the way your brain interprets the outside world and what it tells you to do with the information from the outside world.
Now, your team is working to quantify and measure these emotions, and you're doing so by studying various types of animals. Why are you studying so many different types of animals?
So we come at emotion as biological functions of the brain. They arose through evolution by natural selection. And that means that if we study other animals, we should be able to see sort of pieces of emotion or evolutionary precursors of emotion that developed along the way leading to us. It's not like emotions suddenly appeared all at once with the advent of human beings. Why do we want to study animals? If you study only humans, you put people in brain scanners, you ask them how they feel. Patient says, I feel afraid. If you show them a scary movie and you scan their brain, and you might see some activity lighting up in some part of the brain. But that is just a correlation. It doesn't mean that the brain activity is producing emotion. Could be that the emotion is producing the brain activity, or that something else is producing both of them that you're not measuring. And the only way to determine what is causing what is to be able to get into the brain and intervene, change the pattern of neuronal activity, and see if that changes the emotion state. If it does, then you can say that the brain activity is causing the emotion state. Animals allow us to intervene in the brain in ways that we can't do in humans.
How do you know that a fruit fly is angry?
You can watch the behavior of animals. For example, both dogs and cats like to roll on their backs with their belly in the air when you come over to them. And that is almost a universal gesture of submission in the animal kingdom. That's their way of saying, I'm not a threat. I'm not going to hurt you. Don't attack me. And so we can infer from that type of behavior that there's some sort of state underlying it. And so if we see these things that are shared across many animals, and we see that they last a long time and they can be stronger or weaker, then we can start to say, okay, here are some objective features that tell me about what the animal is doing and how the animal is doing it. We still don't have a specific test that we can do to measure an emotion state in an animal. And so our measurements of emotion they're indirect, and they involve looking at a sort of constellation, a set of features.
What future outcomes do you hope that this research leads to?
What I hope it will lead to is a better understanding of how animal brains control their behavior and how similar their emotional control is to ours, and in turn, that will lead us to better understand our own emotional brains. If you think about mental illness as involving maladaptations of emotion systems, too much fear, too much anger, or it lasts too long. If we can understand how those things actually happen when somebody is in a state like that, we may have a better way to treat those disorders in humans. There hasn't been a fundamentally new drug for depression or anxiety or any other psychiatric disorder approved by the Food and Drug Administration in the last 50 years. And that's because we don't understand the emotional brain well enough. But there's so many people working on this now. I'm very optimistic that there will be some breakthroughs and understandings and maybe in treatments over the next 5 to 10 years.